What are the best Necron units? Let's continue our journey to finding out how to win with Necrons.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. And if you're new to the channel and you would like to keep up to date with the Wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so we have been looking at Necron dynasties, Necron detachments. We've been laying down the foundation, the building blocks to making a Necron army that can win on the table. And today we are going to continue that, looking at the best Necron units in this codex. Now of course we do have access to Forge World, unlocking some very good units for Necrons, in particular the Tesseract Arc. However, this video series is about winning with the Necron Codex. We already know that the Codex is overcosted and not necessarily the best Codex that Warhammer 40k has. However, with the right selection of units, we do have a chance to win on the table. So, let's have a rundown of some of those units. Now obviously I'm not going to be able to do a full rundown of each individual unit, but I'm going to give you the basic ideas, and then in future videos we're going to look at all of these units in depth. Okay, so the HQs, and it's fair to say we've got a lot of HQs to choose from. A lot of these are named characters where you can't change their abilities. So, which ones are the best? Well, first of all, we've got the Humble Lord. This is quite a cheap unit, and it can buff not only one unit, but any unit that's infantry within 6 inches, allowing you to re-roll the ones to wound on those units. That is a very powerful ability for such a cheap unit. Now stepping up from the Lord is the Overlord. Now he has a better stats line, but more importantly he has My Will Be Done. My Will Be Done is very powerful, giving an infantry unit within 6 inches +1 to hit, +1 to advance, and +1 to their assault roll. Now this is an incredibly special rule. Now remember that the rule lasts until the following Necron turn. That means that it works in your opponent's turn too. Now you can't use My Will Be Done on Overwatch. However, My Will Be Done does work in close combat as well, and that means you'll be +1 to hit in both your turn and your opponent's turn. Now don't forget, for 1 command point you can use the Pharaoh's Will, allowing you to do My Will Be Done twice on 2 separate units. Yes, twice! Now next we have the Necron Cryptic. Now this is a reasonably priced unit for what it does. Now the Cryptic comes in 2 forms. You can either take Chronometron, giving your infantry units within 3 inches a 5+ invulnerable save, or you can take the Cloak. Now the Cloak turns the unit into a fly unit, allowing it to move 10 inches. And it has the ability to increase living metal on nearby tanks. Now both Cryptics have the ability to give you +1 to RP. Again, very useful, turning a 5+ RP roll into a 4+. Now we do have other units that we can take. If we want to be more aggressive with our HQs, we could take a Catacomb Command Barge. Now the Barge has a Wave of Command ability. It's like My Will Be Done, but you're going to be more mobile. And you have the option to change how the unit works using stratagems and relics. We're going to cover the Catacomb Command Barge more in another video. Now let's not forget the Destroyer Lord, another classic Necron HQ. He is fast like the Command Barge and offers other buffs, especially if you're taking him in the Novok Dynasty. Not necessarily the best HQ, but worth a mention. Now don't forget our named characters. Many of them are just buffed units of what we've already covered. So Orican, for example, is just a buffed Cryptic. So feel free to take any of those characters that you wish. Just remember that named characters tend to have a fixed dynasty. But overall, I would say the best units are the Cryptic, the Lord, and the Overlord. Right, now let's have a look at the troops. Okay, so that was the HQs, and now it starts to get interesting because we're going to talk about troops. I don't think I want to talk too much, right? I'm talking about the best units, don't lose focus. Now there is a big argument for not taking troops at all in a Necron Codex. Yes, you do lose objective secure, but the main reason why people take a lot of troop units in their army is to unlock some of the detachments. Now Necron troops aren't cheap. Yes, you can take 5 Immortals for 85 points, but you can't exactly say that that is the best unit. Now there is a big argument for taking warriors, especially warriors in big blobs, taking full advantage of RP. Put some Ghost Arcs in there as well to really beef up their abilities to stay alive. However, in my personal opinion, big blobs of warriors, especially when you're committing to 2 or 3 of them and the Ghost Arcs, isn't the way to build a Necron Army list to win on the table. I believe that if you are going to take troops, you're better off committing to bigger squads of Immortals. Immortals have a 3+ save, 2+ if you're in cover. Buff the unit with a Cryptic Lord or Overlord, and this unit can actually do a lot of damage. But which gun do you take? Well, ultimately you can use both guns, but I think if we're talking about the best option, no doubt the Tesla guns are the best ones. You get 2 shots at 24 inches. Any 6s that you get give you 2 extra hits. Put My Will Be Done on that unit, and any 5s that you get, you'll get 2 extra hits. Now if you're in the Sotek Dynasty and you're shooting at a unit that's already taken an unsaved wound, you can use Methodical Destruction. That's a great stratagem that gives you +1 to hit. That means that on a 4+ to hit, you'll be getting 2 extra hits. That is pretty powerful. Pop a Lord in there, and that means you're re-rolling the 1s to wound as well. So Necron troops definitely have a place in your army, but you do have to be a bit more dedicated regarding the amount of points that you spend on the troops units. However, if you don't take troops, you do unlock more points for other units. So let's have a look at the elites section. Okay, so elites. Now we do have some very interesting units within the elites slot. The standout one is no doubt the Deceiver. This Catan is very useful, mainly because it has Grand Illusion. Being able to redeploy units outside of your deployment zone before the game starts can be very useful. That can put your opponent on edge. Now remember, you can only move D3 amount of units, so that's a minimum of 1. So that should be your plan. Allow for that to happen. Don't forget, you can put the Veil of Darkness on one of your other characters and use that in conjunction with what the Deceiver can do. Now the other units which are pretty good are Lichguard, Flayed Ones and the Triarch Stalker. However, Lichguard are pretty expensive in points. They can make a great bodyguard for your HQ. You can use them more aggressively and try to get them into assault, but it is a big points investment. Now Flayed Ones, one of my most favourite units in the Codex, on paper are actually really good. However, in the game, on the table, they're nothing more than a distraction unit. They just don't have the staying power with their 4+ save, and although they have a lot of attacks, they just don't have the killing power to be an all-out assault unit. The Triarch Stalker, which can go down quite quickly, does offer your army a lot of advantages. Remember, every time that Stalker shoots at a unit, it doesn't have to wound, doesn't even have to hit. The rest of your army that shoots at that unit can re-roll the 1s. But it has to be said that the Deceiver is going to be the best option in the elite section, not just because it can move units around the table, but it also isn't actually that bad in close combat, and it has access to the powers of the Catan. Okay, next, fast attack. Okay, so the fast attack choices. Now it's fair to say fast attack should be the support units of the army. However, our fast attack choices these days seem to be the mainstay of our force. And it doesn't get much better than the Necron Destroyers. These are fast, they have great guns, they're pretty tough, they have a decent save, and they have 3 wounds each. And on top of that, they have RP. Their guns are strength 6, -3 AP, and do D3 damage each. The only drawback is the 24-inch range of those guns. Add in the Extermination Protocol stratagem, or at the very least, My Will Be Done, and these guys can do a lot of damage. Don't forget to keep a cryptic nearby for the 5+ invulnerable save and the 4+ RP. Plus, destroyers don't really rely on a specific dynasty. Nephric destroyers are probably the best, down to their stratagem, Translocation Crypt, allowing you to hold the unit back in reserve and come down on turn 1. In that way, if you don't get turn 1, your destroyers are protected. There really is no reason not to have at least one destroyer unit in your army. It's pretty hard to argue that destroyers are the best unit in the Codex. Now, if there was a unit to compete with destroyers, it's Tomb Blades. Tomb Blades move incredibly fast and they're hard to hit. They have access to 3 different type of guns and they have the ability to ignore cover. They only have 2 wounds compared to the 3 wounds of a destroyer, but they do still have reanimation protocols. Tomb Blades at a push could even be a good bubble wrap unit. Tomb Blades are definitely up there with one of the best units we have in the Codex. Okay, so next up are the Scarab Swarms. How great would it be if these guys were troops? 3 Scarab Swarms in a unit at 13 points each. They would help us unlock the battalion detachment like most other armies can. However, these guys are fast attack, and a good fast attack they are. They have 3 wounds each. Now yes, their save isn't very good, but they're pretty universal in what they can do on the table. Scarabs make a great bubble wrap unit. Wrap them around the units that you don't want to be first turn assaulted. Put them at the front of your army so they can take the smite. Use them to lock things in close combat, or at least if you go up against something which doesn't have the fly special rule, stop them from falling back and shooting. Scare the big units. Scarabs wound anything in the game on a 5+. Okay, their weapon skill is only 4, but these guys get 4 attacks each. That is a lot of attacks. And Scarab Swarms are great for denying those deep strikers that your enemy might have. Stop them getting within 9 inches of your back fields. I class units of Scarab Swarms not as the best units, but as the essential units that you need to make your armies work. Small units of 3 or big units of 9, it doesn't really matter. Just get some Scarab Swarms in your army. Next we have the Canoptic Wraiths. Now these are the guys that have a 3+ invulnerable save. They're an assault unit. They can take guns. Particle Caster, pretty good. Transdimensional Beamer in the Nihilic Dynasty, very useful. However, both of those gun options will cost you points. At 55 points base, to be fair, I think the Wraiths are better off without the guns. They have 3 attacks each at strength 6, -2 AP with 2 damage. These guys against Primaris Space Marines or the equivalent can really put on the hurt. They are fast and have the stratagem where they can advance and assault. Put that in the Nephric Dynasty and you can automatically advance 6 inches before you assault. Wraiths can make a great distraction unit. If you get into the backfields of your enemy, you can take out the squishy stuff, or you could assault a gun tank that doesn't have the fly special rule, so it can't fall back and shoot you. And of course they have the 3+ invulnerable save. Now some armies can negate that, either taking it away or at least reducing it. Watch out for those units. If they're on the table, the best thing to do is flank the Wraiths to the side of the table. Either bring your opponents to that side or try to get down the side to the back ranks of their army. Fast attack is where you're going to build the strength and the speed of your army, and that is why the Outrider detachment is probably the most sought after in the Necron army. Okay, so the heavy support slot. Now, it's fair to say that the heavy support slot isn't always about big guns. We have the Transcendent Catan. Now the Transcendent Catan has the ability to give himself a 3+ invulnerable save, something that we dream about when it comes to Catans. However, I do believe that the Deceiver is still the best option if you're going to take just one Catan. So I'm not going to put him as the best unit in the heavy support slot. The heavy support slot is really where we need to put our big guns. We need those big guns as a Necron army. There's so many units that have multiple wounds on the table. We need something to deal with them. Now I think there's a place for both Doomsday Arks and heavy destroyers in our armies. The Doomsday Arks are more of a stationary unit, but they have a longer ranged gun, higher strength and better AP. Now these tanks should be D3 plus 3 amount of shots, and they should be a fixed 3 damage. However, they are D6 amount of shots and D6 amount of damage, making these tanks very random. On a good roll, you're going to do a lot of damage. On a bad roll, you are going to be very disappointed. And that is why you want at least 2, if not 3 of these on the table. Remember the rule, 1 is none, 2 is 1, and 3 is some. You need to try and take out that randomness by having more units. And you need to make sure that you save your command points for these guys. You want to get as many bullets out as you can, and you want to do as much damage as you can. Command points on this tank are very valuable, not just for the rerolls, but some of the stratagems that we have as well. Now you can help the Doomsday Arks out by taking them in the Nihilic Dynasty, rerolling the ones to hit. You could take a Triarch Stalker and shoot the unit you're targeting at first, allowing you to re-roll the ones to hit. We can help the unit. The 2 stratagems you are going to use is Damage Control Override and Quantum Deflection. These 2 stratagems really help the Doomsday Arks. Now the other option is Heavy Destroyers. Heavy Destroyers can only be taken in a unit of 3. I think this is a big downfall with this unit. However, they are a nice complement to Doomsday Arks, and if you could fit some of those into the list as well, that can be very useful. However, putting all of the points into heavy support into those big guns isn't always going to win you the game. What happens if you're facing a horde army and all you've got is big guns that do lots of damage? You are going to struggle. It's all about having a good mixture of guns and units in your army. But what about our Lords of War? So we have 2 Lords of War, the Obelisk and the Tesseract Vault. Now the Obelisk is not played that much. It does have a higher toughness than the Vault, which is actually very useful. But you have to say overall, for the points, because it's not that much cheaper than the Vault is definitely the best of the 2. Now the Vault is a lower toughness at toughness 7, however it's got a 4+ invulnerable save and more wounds. More importantly though, it's got the Transcendent Catan in the Vault, and that gives it a bonus to when it's using its powers of the Catan. And as it's done in the shooting phase, it isn't a psychic power. Your enemy is unable to deny it. However, the Vault is quite expensive, and if you're just taking one of them, you've got to put it in the super heavy auxiliary detachment. It's also going to be a very big target on the table. The chances are your enemy's big guns is going to go into that Vault, and even with a 4+ invulnerable save, it's going to go down fairly quick. Now, your enemy may ignore the Vault. That is an option open to them. But as you've spent so many points on the Vault, it means that the rest of your units on the table are also going to be reduced in numbers. I think the Vault is a great unit. I don't think it's necessarily the best unit, unless you're taking 3 of them. A pretty boring way of playing Necrons. Do we really want to win with that list? Personally, I don't. I would rather make the other units work on the table, and now we know which are the best units, which are the best detachments, which are the best dynasties to take. We can move forward and have a look at the strategies to making this codex work. Now if you're not subscribed already, hit the Edict Bear icon, and if you want to find out more about Necron dynasties, check out that video there where I run over all of the core tactics that you need to winning with Necrons.